what are your thoughts on how genomics research is going to influence cannabis taxonomy in the future? Because that's a really muddy
Yeah.
area in general. Cannabis taxonomy is one of these things that nobody, I mean, even, botanists and um, chemists and geneticists, it's hard to get on the same page on how to classify plants or even how to define what a species is. But where do you see
Yes.
that moving towards in the future?
So we're in this weird time frame where the entire phylogenetic tree of life is getting redefined.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I'm kind of waiting for that dust to settle before I weigh in because
Yeah.
I mean, they're starting to do it genetically, which is if you're 95% identical to this other microbe, you're the same, genre or the same species. They're trying to make um, metrics like that to begin calling these, and it is needed because we have a lot of redundant nomenclature, even in the microbial side of things. If you try and get Aspergillus species out of ATCC or other cell banks, you'll find that a lot of them haven't been sequenced before. And then you apply primers to them from the literature that are supposed to hit them and they don't. And then you sequence its genome and realize it's not what they told you it was.
Yep.
So a lot of the stuff has all been done with eyeballs, people looking at the morphology and looking at these things on plates. And of course, organisms can express really bizarre phenotypes. I mean, the classic case is like a caterpillar and a butterfly, right? Same genome, complete. You wouldn't, if you looked at those things, you wouldn't call them the same species.
Right.
If you look at Aspergillus species, they can be just as genetically diverse, yet they look identical. So the look of the species is no longer trustworthy for classifying them. Now, speciation in general usually involves whether they can continue to cross. Right? We have cannabis plants that all cross with one another, so they're arguably the same species. Now, if you want to subdivide them into subspecies, Indica, Sativa, and all that, that's great. But we probably need some paleogenomics to really nail that. If that's in fact the story, that the Indicas came out of one geographic region at one point in time, and the Sativas were more equatorial, then maybe that will bear itself out. But right now, they've been so mixed inappropriately named during that mixing process that the Sativa Indica thing doesn't match up to any of the genetics right now.
Yeah.
So I usually don't get involved in a lot of debates on whether we're going to call these things chemovars, cultivars, or strains. I tend to mock them actually because I don't find it a very productive conversation when the whole tree is getting rewritten. We can argue over the taxonomy stuff later. I tend to just read the DNA because that's the answer you're really looking for. What you're looking for in this categorization is how do these things differ biochemically? And so chemovar is a great name, but it doesn't. Right now, the chemovars we're measuring aren't really measuring the flavonoids, so I don't view that as a legitimate way to necessarily draw the taxonomy. But ultimately, it's the heritable units that govern the taxonomy. That's taxonomy is DNA, and anyone who tries to tell you otherwise is going to be proven horribly wrong.